Alright. Welcome back to Nicholas Comic Corner Classic Lesson and Classics. This is episode number 1547, and episode number 1400 and. Just want to make sure I got this right here. There we go. It's 1553 and Doubleshot number 1447. Yep, now I have one DC trade and one Marvel trade. Now, the first one is Batman Night Out. Yeah, this is actually a trade that came out fairly recently. Now, this trade, all the issues in this book are written by Chuck Dixon. This collects issues 703 to 718. And this is nearly 400-page book. Yeah, it's thick. Really thick. Now, these are the two artists for these issues. We have Graham Nolan and the late Jim Aparo. The cover artist for the trade is mostly Graham Nolan, Tom Palmer, and Patrick Martin. Oh, and here's something though. This image here, this is for the third page of the book. Yeah, that's an actual cover of Batman using a gun. Here's something unique about this. They actually have the month and the year these issues came out, because here's the thing. Unless this is one of the, Golden Age books, the Golden Silver Age, or Bronze Age books, they don't list the month and year. But this is a modern book, per se. Now, these issues were released from November 1996 to, I think it's February of 1998. Now, a lot of the time the covers are done by Graham Nolan, who does pretty much majority of his covers, with Brian Surflees, Bob McLean, Carl Ketzler, Carl Story, and, of course, Patrick Martin. Martin. Yes. Now, this mostly deals with the after effects of Batman Legacy, which is the crossover that happened just before this, and what happened after this was Cataclysm. Yeah, this is simply the in-between stuff that happened between Legacy and Cataclysm for Detective Comics. Oddly enough, Detective Comics does not appear on the trade. This is called Batman Night Out. Yeah, it's a Batman trade, but it does not contain issues with Batman. It's Detective Comics. There are various different stories here. The very first one deals with the events of Final Night. Yes, if you don't know what the heck that crossover what that was a crossover that happened in 1996. It was, simply put, a 4-issue miniseries. What was a crossover that came out that year? Where apparently the sun was going to go dark, going to turn cold. Now, yes, DC did do a very similar event to this just last year. An event called Endless Winter, which that was loose tie into the stuff going on in Dark Knight Death Metal. Now, the biggest thing that happened in this crossover was that Hal Jordan, who had prior to this had become the suit villain Parallax, sacrificed himself in order to reignite the sun, which the whole planet was turning cold. It was only one issue to the comics, and then after that it went back to normal detective-style stories. Now, based on the cover here, you probably noticing though that on the cover you see Batman, look over the computer console, you see Bane, Penguin, Joker, Two-Face, Catwoman, people associated with Batman, and you're probably noticing the guy in the middle. It's Martian Manhunter. Yes, what is his business here? Well, I should point out that this is actually, I think, just prior to the start of his ongoing series that was coming on in 1988. It was discontinued in 2001 due to, get this, there was a rumor swirling around at the time when the series ended by Jonathan. He was writing the book. The reason why he ended the book at issue, I think it was 38, I think it did. I think it was 36, 38. The reason why he ended was absolutely stupid reason. Was that he heard a rumor going around that DC was going to kill off Martian Manhunter in the events of our Worlds of War. Yes, seriously, that was a plan DC had. And no, he didn't die. He still was alive, even up until Flashpoint. Well, he did die in Final Crisis, per se, but he didn't die after. He still stuck around, didn't do a lot. Mostly put, he just here just to solve basically there was a serial killer from his town he's from, which he was a detective in. Yes, he was his whole. By the way, he used his old John Jones alias as the human guise that he did back in the 50s. He would occasionally go back this after his original feature ended. Well, after he stopped being John Jones, he would occasionally go back to being this particular thing. This all started the pages of Justice League of all things. Yeah, Justice League America back in the 80s, where he would sporadically go back to this guise. But at this point, he's no longer a detective for the police department he's working for. Nope, this time he's an actual private investigator. Yep. And he's here to investigate a potential serial killer who visits his town and of course, Batman knows who he is because, of course, he knows who he is because he knows he's Martian Manhunter. And I thought that was just so cool. We actually had Martian Manhunter ride in the Batmobile. Like, as far as I can tell, for like a character who's not a Batman character, this is a very rare occurrence. The only, like, can you think of any other time like a non-Batman character has rode the Batmobile? The answer is yes. And that character was Swamp Thing. That was something Tom King came up with. Yeah, that was really the whole. He was only here about a couple issues, and that was it. Now, a lot of the issues deal with the Riddler. And we also have Firefly show up for a couple issues. Yes, frickin' Firefly, Garfield Lenz. No, we're not related. His last name is spelled differently than mine. If you don't know who the heck Firefly is, he is a pyromaniac. The best way to describe it is that he's a Batman Rogue Gallery version of Heatwave. That's simply put what he is. Except unlike Heatwave, who, you see, post-Flashpoint, this guy had burns covering half his body. That was something that apparently Francis O'Brien borrowed that from Firefly. Firefly did have burns over 90% of his body because he loved fire. And he was a pyrotechnic. That was his job prior to becoming a maniac. And he loved the burn stuff. Yes. And the thing is, Firefly has been around mostly since the 40s, per se. He's not that big of a character in the comics. No, not really. And when you think of Firefly, you usually think of the TV show by Joss Whedon, the show that people want to bring back. No, this is a completely different character. This character made his debut back in 1952. There's a couple of different characters. Mostly it's Garfield Lenz. Now, his last name is spelled Lynns. They also had a couple of people called him. One was Ted Carson, who appeared in Batman 126. And then they brought back this version of the character for DC, well, New 52. Yeah, they brought this character back. He only appeared initially just for a one-shot story. Yes, a one-shot story back in 1959. Yeah, he appeared just as one story. Oh yeah, here's the thing though. In the current continuity, get this. And you're going to love this. Well, they actually had it where this guy, Ted Carson, killed Garfield Lenz and Poe. They actually kind of swapped identities. I'm not really sure why that Kyle Higgins did this for, where in the annual for Nightwing, that's when he showed up in, where this guy got killed off and they had him take over. Heck, they even brought in Bridget Pike, who was the female Firefly of the TV show Gotham. She actually appeared just a few years ago when James Robinson brought her in the comics. Yep, brought her in the comics, which is, I thought that was really cool. The fact they brought her in. Yep, just a few years ago. As Lady Firefly. Yep, Bridget Pike. And, like, after her, she only appears just for a 4-part storyline. The Face-to-Face. She appears just for a few issues. Her last appearance was in 993, which I believe was a Tomas. No, it's a. I believe this also was the last issue done by by James Thompson. Yeah, it was the last issue he worked on before he left the book. Why did he leave the book? I have no idea. But I know with 994, that's when Peter DeTomas took over the book. Yep. And he took the book very recently. Now this guy has appeared on TV, mostly anyways. And you gotta think basically like if you look at basically his original appearance, the guy was simply a goofy character, and then all of a sudden they made him a more serious character. And like I said, he appeared sporadically over the years. Now, Penguin's here because of all of some gang war stuff. And I believe this was the storyline where they established the Iceberg Lounge. Yeah, I think this is when this actually showed up. The Iceberg Lounge, if you're curious to what the heck that is a nightclub owned by the Penguin. It was a way for him to go legit. Yes, seriously. That's what they did with the character. I thought that was a really interesting idea. And they kind of kept the organization around, the Iceberg Lounge around, even after post-Flashpoint. Though they made it into a casino for some reason. I have no idea why. And you're thinking, really? Why the heck would they turn a nightclub into a freaking casino? Now, who brought this particular thing into the comics? Why, it was Chuck Dixon. Actually, which is the year prior to this. Yep, brought this thing in. Well, there's stuff involving him and Two-Face in here. Catwoman does very little of this stuff here, but this is just really good stuff here over the course of 18 straight issues. Well, actually, it's more like 16 straight issues. My best ranking for this stuff is I'm going to give it roughly a 9.5. But all the stuff with the Riddler, we also use women call themselves the Riddler daughters. Yeah, they're not really related to him. They're just claiming to be his daughters. But yeah, a lot of issues. Yep. Alright, as for the second one I'm going to discuss here, it is Moon Knight, Volume 3, God and Country. Now, we have a brand new writer in the book. Yep. Now, I should point out, though, Mike Benson is the writer who takes over to issue 14. Charlie Hudson just does the opening issue, and then he leaves. Yeah, basically it's more of a passive torch type of thing. Of course, we do have Mark Texter do an issue, and then Mike Dell does the rest of this. Now, I should point out that Mike Benson does pretty much the rest of this run up until the final issue, issue 30. Now, this storyline is some of the stuff that's been building since the start of this particular run. Like, for example, the stuff with the whole thing of Moon Knight becoming really crazy. And in this particular storyline, we had one of his long-term villains, the Black Spectre. He gets killed in the storyline. He actually gets killed in the finale. Yeah, he gets stabbed by Moon Knight and gets thrown off a building. And dies. And to this day, he has stayed dead. And they do wrap up the plot thread of the hallucination of Raoul Bushman, where he gets back his own face, and then he gets written off. My guess is the reason why Mike Benson did it, because even he realized that this whole thing with Raoul Bushman without a face, this was not an interesting idea, so he's like, I'll get back his face. And we also have a Raoul with Moon Knight's personality that draws an Iron Man. Yes, seriously, it draws an Iron Man, who at this point in time in the comics was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yep, he seriously was. Why was he director of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Civil War 1. That's the reason why. And he finds out, though, that Moon Knight has become more unhinged than usual, and a psychiatrist who cleared him to become an actual righteous superhero is later found committing suicide. Yes, and Moon Knight is suspected of killing him. Moon Knight tells Tony Stark, I just talked to him. I had nothing to do with his death. So Tony Stark is like, until you get proper psych evaluation, you are hereby suspended from initiative, and your card is temporarily revoked. And of course, Moon Knight is going freaking crazy this whole thing. The Profiler is still wandering about in this whole thing. He doesn't do a lot per se. He does influence of the story here and there. And one thing I thought was really cool about this, that I think that possibly this is more inspiration from. Also, we also have more stuff going on with Marlene and Mark Spector, where he wants to become serious as a couple, and she is not that interested at this point. They do become married later on, and they do have a kid together, a beautiful daughter. Yeah, and one thing she gets really disgusted with Mark Spector is that he brought the statue of Cthulhu, the god he worships, into their bedroom. I'm like, dude, why would you bring that thing into your bedroom? Like, if I were you, I would not bring that there. I would give like a private room for this guy. Don't have in the same room you're sharing with your woman. Yeah. And the reason why she hates statues so much, because her father got killed in front of it. Her father being an archaeologist. Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of odd though Moon Knight gets involved with stuff related to Moon Knight. And here's the weird thing about this. After this volume wraps up, Iron Man never appears in Moon Knight ever again. Nope, never does. Unknown why that after this particular volume wraps up, we don't get like a lot of outside of characters associated with Moon Knight. Yeah, I have no idea why. Also, we have Moon Knight being like in the pages of Daily Beagle, which that's been unusual. Yes, because usually Spider-Man graces the front cover of that newspaper. And because it's a smaller comic universe, why the heck not? And it turns out that Moon Knight's being manipulated by the Black Spectre, who Moon Knight later kills. And I love the way that Mike Didal draws. This is so freaking good. Yes, the moon plane, it looks like the colors for this are so good. It's strange though, Mike Didal never got a chance to do much for his artwork. Like, he's an artist who doesn't get much. He should get a lot more respect than he deserves. The guy is a really damn good artist. And did you know he's from Brazil? Yeah, he's from Brazil. So, right after the whole thing with him killing, well, Black Spectre, then of course that's kind of where the storyline wraps up. By the way, this trade collected issues 14 and I think it's like 20. I think it is. Yeah, 14 and 20, and that's it. Yep. Apparently, after the death of the Black Spectre, he kind of just leaves where he was and kind of, well, reestablishes himself and just goes off someplace. He goes off someplace and, well, that's it. I gotta say, Mike Benson writes this to be a little more interesting. Now, the first story arc for this run, so far this run, now, Charles Hunter's first story arc was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Second arc was okay. I loved the artwork for the book, but the story was just okay at best. I thought the whole thing with Midnight was just odd to say the least, and the character got killed off in the story arc. And this one we killed off another character, the Black Spectre, who has been a recurring villain of Moon Knight since the 80s. So yeah, I'm going to give this book roughly I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I'd say this is definitely a much more cohesive story, but I kind of hope, though, that Mike Benson has followed the same tread that Charles Hudson did, where, like, the first arc is really good and the second arc is okay. I'll find out when I get hands on the second and the fourth and fifth volumes of this trade series, and I'll give my final thoughts on this volume as a whole. Okay, so that's it for particular view, and yes, that's definitely it for videos today. I only did this because the 2 trades I have are being returned tomorrow. So, until this next video, bye.